echoes and feeling the ripples now of a distant sound. I listen much more deeply to its rhythm and desires. Welcome to A Distant Sound. I am your host, Jason Fairhurst Wall. We are going to talk about all things poetry, and poetry arrives in myriad ways. Let us now light the candle on our broadcast. So now that I've subdued you into a state of sleep, let's begin the broadcast again here by livening up the tone a little bit. By the way, I have some notes on today's broadcast, so if you hear a little page turning, you know what that's about. I also have a pen so I can kind of check off the points that I've hit here. And what writer worth his or her salt does not have a journal and a pen on them at all times? None, I say. Anyway, today's theme is about awakening, and or reawakening, as it were. And one can awaken or reawaken to many things, which we'll kind of hit on here on today's broadcast. You know, one of the things I really love about the English language is etymology, which is the study of the origins of words, especially as it relates to English. And I also like to study how words kind of transmutate into different meanings as time goes along. Anyway, it's a different type of English that I like to engage in the study of, and I would encourage anyone out there to study etymology. So let's talk about awake. What does it mean to be awake? Well, I did a little bit of etymology on the word awake, and as you can imagine, it comes from the Old English. It's kind of a blending of a couple of words, if memory serves me correct, and it definitely connotates ceasing to sleep or to come out of sleep. Also, in addition to that, that was kind of superfluous, also in addition to that, I'm sure you caught that. It means to arise or originate, and I love that. So I'd like to underline that, originate, because we as creators definitely want to originate when we create the origin of something. It also means to revive. So in essence, one can awaken or reawaken to many things, and some of those things that I was thinking about, we can awaken to or reawaken to. I thought of 5 things actually, and the first one, of course, is that age-old thing called love. And as we, and I'm no exception to this, look at our lives, to the many times we've fallen in love, we tend to awaken to that or reawaken to that by rekindling an old relationship. I'm no exception. So another thing we can awaken to is joy. You know, being full of life, full of exceptional happiness. And to me, the best way to do that is to be full of gratitude for just being able to be a cast member in this play or this movie that we call life. I try to thank God for allowing me to be a bit player in his story. We can also awaken to passion. I'm a very passionate person, and when I think of things that I like to engage in, I like to do them with passion. It really adds to those things. We can awaken or reawaken to our gifts, our calling. Sometimes we get stagnant. Sometimes we get put on pause for whatever reason. Life happens. Life puts us in those situations. But overall, life is a story, and the overarching narrative, to me, part of that is we need to reawaken to our gifts and engage in them. And everything's a gift at the end of the day, but those talents that we have, I love to see people who have been dormant in those creative activities just come alive all over again. Lastly, the thing I thought about that we can awaken to, or reawaken to as it were, is faith. And to me, faith can be both general and specific. You can have general faith in the aforementioned things: love, joy, passion, gifts. And then you can have specific faith, like a particular worldview. And for me, my worldview is Christocentric. There have been several times where I've lost a little bit of hope and faith in what I actually believe. But one time in particular, in my late 20s, early 30s, while I was going to college, I was seeing a lot of things that just didn't jibe, so to speak, and I lost faith. Until I read a book by an author named Brennan Manning called The Wisdom of Tenderness, and it really reignited that Christocentric faith for me personally. I remember sitting outside in Denver, Colorado, light snowfall at nighttime after reading that book, and just utter silence and peacefulness and tears. I was alone with God. It's as if I was joined to him and one with him. And faith to me also is not necessarily what you're told about a particular thing, but it's verified by what you experience. And for me, I've experienced too much to not believe and have faith in certain things that I've seen play out once I cross that threshold and trust and believe. And also, you got to have the footwork to go along with that faith. You can't just say you mentally ascend to something without putting some type of trust. And that happens to be the case in relationships with other humans as well. I want to take this time to reiterate, sorry, I'm stumbling over my words a little bit today, reiterate what my email address is. It is adistantsound@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. That's a distant sound altogether at gmail.com. A distant sound at gmail.com. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about a few of my favorite things, like I did the last broadcast. And this is a very conceptual episode in a sense, and I wanted to talk about some of my favorite words. And I'm a lover of language, so I definitely want to talk a little bit about that. One of my favorite poets is Rumi. And Rumi is for many people, but he was a Sufi mystic that understood many languages, but a lot of his original writings were written in Persian. And by the way, one of the premier English translators out there, in fact, the best one, is a gentleman by the name of Coleman Barks. He captures the spirit and the spiritual romance of Rumi very well. And I was recently made aware of and awoken and I awakened to a term that Rumi used to use, a Persian word in its origin, and it's pronounced Sama. S-A-M-A is the English equivalent. And it really denotes a deep listening. Now, as creatives, when we listen to our muse, we listen to that inspiration. I have learned over the years that when we are in tune with that deep listening, our work, or my work, consequently has become, in a sense, more simplified, but yet richer and deeper. And that's how I've personally experienced that particular concept of Sama. I would recommend, if you haven't read any of Rumi's stuff, it behooves you to do so, especially if you're an English speaker. You can look up Coleman Barks, and he's got plenty of translations out there. Another word I'm deeply in love with, pun intended, is a Hebrew word, and it's pronounced ahava. And the English equivalent there is A-H-A-V-A. And it is the word for love. What I like about it is, to me, as I study it and study love in general, that particular word, ahava, is all-encompassing, the different aspects of love. And at the end of the day, love is sacrificial. When we love anyone, we tend to make sacrifice. We tend to do what's best for that person. A lot of times when we feel it, sometimes when we don't, and that's the sacrificial part. But love is definitely a sacred thing. Thirdly, I'd like to talk about language in general. I am an English-only speaker. I dabble in a little bit of other languages here and there, concepts, things of that nature. But I don't fluently speak anything other than English. And, I'd really love to learn the Italian language. It's just so beautiful to me. It sounds so beautiful and is written beautifully. And I looked up a couple of, I looked up one word, and it's the word for awake, the adjective sense of the word in Italian. And I had to write down how it's pronounced so I can get at least in the ballpark there. But there is a female sense and a male sense, feminine and masculine. And the male pronunciation would be sveo, sveo. And the female pronunciation would be svea, svea. And it's spelt S-V-E-G-L-I-O and S-V-E-G-L-I-A, respectively. And those are the words for awake, and that's what this broadcast is all about today. I'd like to take a little time now to talk about a couple of upcoming segments. One is Get to Know an Artisan, and we'll be talking to a painter and sketch artist by the name of Dwayne Riggs. I know him personally. He's a really humble yet brilliant man, and I'd like to talk to him about awakening and reawakening to his own personal gift, and get to rub elbows with him for a few minutes and just get his voice here on the broadcast. And then after that, I have a section that I'll be playing 6 of my poems set to music, and I call this set list Love Awake. And I'll give you the title of those 6 poems here now. In succession, it will go: Let It All Be Freed, Waking Steps, Insincerity, Jacaranda, Nothing to Feign, and 31. And each poem ties into this theme of both love and awakening. And it's very diverse in the musical selections, and I'm very proud of it. So let's go now to our interview with Mr. Duane Riggs. I was able to sit down with him and get to know a little bit more about his story. Take a listen. Hey there, Duane. Welcome to A Distant Sound broadcast. I really appreciate you being with us today.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I really consider it an honor, and I just wanted to ask you 3 little questions here. I know you're a painter and sketch artist. I've seen your work, and I know you're passionate about it. You know, today's broadcast is about awakening and reawakening. Can you tell us a little bit how these gifts awakened in you? Like,
Well, it's the awakening for art. I guess it's I've always had a passion or a interest in artwork. I mean, as far back as I can remember. It's just been a part of my uh, thought process. I guess I should have always been interested in it. But I think when I was probably about 10, I saw my father draw something off of the front of a coloring book. It was Santa Claus and a reindeer, and it just it was so perfect in my eyes that it blew my mind. To see your father do something like that, you always want to do things that as a child that your father did.
Absolutely.
It impressed me, and I said I'm going to do that. I'm going to be able to do that, and just every little thing that had to do with art, if it interested me, I just wanted to do it, and I wanted to do it better than they did. So, and I was very competitive as growing up as a child, so because I was in the middle of 5 kids, so it had to be to survive, especially with an older brother. But
Absolutely. You know, as I know from personal experiences, as an artist, as a creative, we often have setbacks in life, and just people in general do, and that tends to snuff out some of our passions. Can you tell us a little bit, maybe about a time, even recently, when your gifts and talents kind of reawakened in you?
um, I really don't know exactly when they reawoke, but um, it was always trying to wake up because I chose construction over going to college, finishing college. I had got a scholarship, a small scholarship in high school, and went to a small community college, and was doing real well. And fell in love with a girl. I thought I was in love, but
That'll do
so
it.
I followed that, like a lot of men have, and I just put my artwork in the back burner actually, and because after seeing some starving artist work, it was depressing for me because it was beautiful paintings that went for pennies, for just mere dollars, and
People don't value
yeah, I mean,
the artistry. Yeah, I
it
understand.
just broke my heart. It really did, and so and I would hear people say, Well, you know, you'll never make it as an artist because you don't get famous or don't make money until you die. So you know, that started setting in and negative thinking. You know, it just it you know took over, and it's just I I wish you know I would have stayed into it, you know,
Hmm.
and but that's you know that's hindsight. But, you know, it was the reawakening itself. It, it's hit and miss, I guess. It just came out, and then I've had to set it back again. You know, I've put it on the
Sure.
back burner so many times. But
Do you feel like you're in a reawakening period right now, maybe?
yeah, I kind of do.
Okay.
It's a good feeling, and it's making someone else happy.
Sure.
It's a gift, and that's something that I've come to understand and believe that it's a God gifted talent. I mean,
Absolutely.
if it wasn't for you know him, because everybody can't do it. I realize that,
Hmm.
but it's not easy. You know, it's something that has to be worked on. It's kind
Amen.
of like recovery. It has to be worked on a
Absolutely.
daily reprieve. But it's it's a blessing,
Amen.
and I try to give some of my artwork to people who appreciate it and it makes them happy because that's a great feeling inside.
Yeah, sometimes that pays more than money.
Oh yeah, it's priceless. It really is.
Absolutely.
So
You talked about your father as an influence, and obviously you're talking about the Lord, and I vibe with you on that as your brother here.
yeah,
But do you have an artist in mind that you've really enjoyed his or her work that kind of influenced you a little bit?
the one that comes to mind right off the bat, is right off the top of my head, is the one that I just adored or cherished his work when I was just in high school when I was doing you know really good coming up and it was Rembrandt
Mm.
and it was because I think it was the lighting you know a lot of his stuff was done by candlelight and
Wow.
that amber
Glow.
glow
Yeah.
yeah it was just amazing how he could get
That warmth.
that yeah it's just almost like you could just reach out there and touch it and
Absolutely.
that part of realism I think is amazing that you know that he could do it when he did it you know
Right.
I still think he
With the lack of technology, so to speak.
yeah I
Yeah.
mean they had mirrors and that's about I mean as far as I know that's all they really trickery stuff they did
Absolutely.
but it's it's just amazing some of his work
Mm.
just so beautiful the color
Now you make me want to
the
look at
warmth of it.
more Rembrandt pieces. So.
but as I got older, I come to appreciate Da Vinci's work.
Mm.
He was a genius, you know. I mean,
Yes.
he was just more than an artist. He's just so many other. He
Brilliant
was
thinker, brilliant.
just a
Yeah.
brilliant person. I don't even think he's from this earth, you know.
Yeah.
Or he had contacts in other places, you know. But he was amazing, and you know, in that time, my gosh, it's unbelievable. It
Hmm.
really is. And he was a great artist. I mean, all this stuff, if you ever checked it out, and look how perfect. Just, I mean, he got every detail,
Sure.
you know. And I can relate to his drawing. I mean, it's just where he's like the sketching part.
Hmm.
You know, I think my technique or my uh, style is a lot like his,
Hmm.
and I only wish I could be 1/10 of the artist that he is. But he's just, I think he's a brilliant artist.
Sure. Sure. Well, let me segue and tell you I feel the same way about you, and I know that it's just it's in you. I smell the reawakening in you, and I love to see that. I really do. I just really want to thank you for the gift you gave me of that mermaid sketch. It's really beautiful. In fact, on the video version of this cast, I have the photograph of it for people to enjoy. And I also want to thank you for the gift of your time and your overall talents and what you give to the world. And I just look forward to great things from you.
Well, man, that's very nice. That's so kind. Thank you. Thank you for encouraging me and giving me support and
it's a two-way street, my friend.
Man.
It's a two-way street, believe me.
It's been an honor. And
iron sharpens iron, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Electricity running through the veins instead of crimson. I have not known this feeling since I was able to bleed. Fleeting when it rains, but lasting like a tempest. Eyes search at all turns for the frame of one who moves and fuels this effortlessly. Will she ever know? Can she ever see the key that unlocks the flood? This could rather be called by an entirely different name. May it all be so. And please let it all be freed. Free this all in me. No promise could exceed what could be in store for you. Placement is calling, and always behind the scenes when we see it not. For I see my eyes fool me like a mirage to be chased. Therefore, standing still are expectations, but surely not hope. That must be the force which fuels all and every waking step. Eyelids now at ease, we shall sleep most peacefully, truly knowing this. Our hands, in a state of rest, are open to receive it. Insincerity left long ago, and if love can be unrequited, quieted, perhaps we need to know it by another name, because it stands alone, taking joy in all it gives itself, with nothing left on the shelf. And this, my music, stands still and alone, relishing the symphony, drinking the cacophony. Insincerity left long ago. Insincerity left long ago. the outer sanctum, royal, full, and arresting. Drawing these eyes in, magnetism of new breath. Exhaling a bygone day. Reminders of hope, dreaming actualities, speaking existence, and love's gentle persistence, akin to living belief. The inner sanctum, under the cool of shading, drawing these eyes out, studying inherently the muse in the form of you. Rhythm and rhyme make love in time. Floodgates aglow. We never know unless we try. This is the cry, not one of pain. Ecstasies reign. Nothing to fame. New love we gain, all that I give, long as I live, water and flesh, spirits we mesh, symbols to sound, love comes around, there is no pain, ecstasies reign, nothing to fame, this love we gain. Rhythm and rhyme make love in time. Floodgates aglow. We never know unless we try. This is the cry, not one of pain. Ecstasies reign, nothing to fame. New love we gain, all that I give, long as I live, water and flesh, spirits we mesh, symbols to sound, love comes around, there is no pain, ecstasies reign, nothing to fame, this love we gain.
Venus in the east. Venus in the east. Venus in the east. Venus in the east. Venus in the east.
31, 31, 31,
Venus
31,
the east.
31.
Venus
Not just the flavors, but also the syllables. Drink in the sounds and listen to the edibles. But do we even notice that life is just incredible? A savory mark, chiseled ink and pen indelible.
Venus
31,
the east.
31, 31.
In
Placement of love in places never known. Panorama of colors in visions never shown. Dreamlike dreamscapes My mind is simply blown. Freedom to stay, but no desire to own.
in the east.
31, 31,
Venus
31.
east.
And who first told us to look at the shell? Never doubt the heart without the willingness to tell. Of the sea deep and wide, I give and never sell. Knee deep amore, and that's how I fell.
Venus
31,
the east.
31,
Venus
31,
in
31, 31.
Venus in the east. Venus in the east.
And now I'd like to end our time together by weaving the following into the tapestry of the theme. This is found in Isaiah chapter 60, verses 1 through 4, from the Voice translation, which, by the way, is a very poetic translation. Arise, shine, for your light has broken through. The Eternal One's brilliance has dawned upon you. See truly, look carefully. Darkness blankets the earth. People all over are cloaked in darkness. But God will rise and shine on you. The Eternal's bright glory will shine on you, a light for all to see. Nations north and south, peoples east and west will be drawn to your light. Will find purpose and direction by your light. In the radiance of your rising, you will enlighten the leaders of nations. Don't be shy. Don't be doubtful. Lift up your eyes and look around. They have gathered all around you, eager to come and be close to you. And your children will come back to this land, your sons from the farthest places of wandering, and your daughters gently carried home. It is time to light your candle in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.